So the first two books we're going to be talking about today are from A.E. Van Vogt, who was a Canadian-born Golden Age science fiction writer who is most well known for his series of The World of Null A. This is the sequel, The Players of Null A, also known as The Pawns of Null A. I recently read The World of Null A. I definitely see why people say he was a big influence on Philip K. Dick. You can clearly see the connection between the two writers. He has a very particular style of running these plots that are all over the place, all at once, and then the end brings everything together, kind of like Ubik. I didn't know much about Van Vogt until recently. Some people credit him for being the father of the fix-up novel, which is when you take multiple short stories, put them together to make a novel, which was very typical of the 1950s in science fiction. The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester in this really nice Signet classic. This is a first printing. Alfred Bester is most well known for Stars My Destination, which is actually the only book I've read by him. He is known as a forerunner for the cyberpunk genre. I read Stars My Destination very long ago, so I would probably need a refresher to really summarize it well, but I do remember enjoying it a lot. I'd be interested in reading this. This book was actually the first book to receive the Hugo Award in 1953. This is a police procedural in a future where telepathy is common. So up next, Lynn Carter. We have The Immortal of World's End and The Year's Best Fantasy Stories, number 5. I have not read anything by Lynn Carter. I just recently started collecting these just because I've seen some really good names in the short stories. For example, this one has Tanith Lee. This is part of a series. It's the third book in the Gondwain series. I'm not really sure if I'll hang on to this. So Lynn Carter was a prominent editor of fantasy, and he was part of the Swordsmen and Sorcerers Guild of America. It was a collective of fantasy authors in the 1960s who were responsible for anthologizing the Flashing Sword series. I know he also worked with L. Sprague de Camp, and they expanded Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian series, which I've also never read, but I watched a lot of those movies growing up. So the next 3 books I have are by John Brunner. I have Born Under Mars, Players at the Game of People, and The Tides of Time. John Brunner is a name I hear a lot in science fiction. I have not read anything by him. I recently purchased a really nice cover of Stand on Zanzibar, which is one of the books I have in my TBR. I'll put that cover here. It's a really nice Valentine. Born Under Mars is about a Mars-born space pilot that is in conflict between some xenophobic humans. You don't really have to go to Mars to experience that, but I feel like I might read this one at some point, and it's a quick burn. This one is about a war veteran that gets granted a life of luxury in exchange for his body and soul. And then The Tides of Time, it's about a couple that gets stuck in this loop where every time they fall asleep, they wake up in another time in history. And I think it all takes place on an island in Greece. Brunner is a name I hear a lot. I will most likely start with Stand on Zanzibar, which I have to double check if it's part of a series. Another book that I'm interested in reading by him is The Sheep Don't Look Up. Up next, I have 2 books by Samuel R. Delany, The Einstein Intersection, and I have The Ballad of Beta 2. There are a lot of Delany books in my TBR right now. Some of them are really long, and I don't see myself reading them anytime soon. The only book I've read by him was his first novel, The Jewels of Aptar, which I think was 1962. I love that book. I think it was a great introduction to his writing. I will say that book to me felt very much like leaning closer to fantasy than science fiction, even though it used science fiction as a facade. Einstein intersection with this beautiful Jack Goggin cover. This is not super high on my TBR. I didn't even look much into the summary of the book. I'm actually more interested in the Ballad of Beta 2, which is about an anthropologist that is studying this ballad of a generational ship. It says anthropology student Janani was sent out on a quest he didn't want to find the meaning of the Ballad of Beta 2, for the ballad was the only clue that even hinted at what had happened to the spaceship Beta 2's missing crew of galactic colonists. Yeah, I really like the premise of this book. Has a very cool club whiskey sour ad in it too. I love book ads. It's the only time I'll say I like an ad is in a book. It's because they're pretty funny. There's usually cigarette ads. I've never seen a whiskey can drink. There is one book by him that I plan on reading very soon, and it's because I found out that his book Trident is directly connected or a response to The Dispossessed by Le Guin, which is currently one of my favorite books. So I'm interested in seeing what connections there are between the two books. Up next, I have Lee Brackett in The Nemesis of Terra. So Lee Brackett is a golden age female science fiction writer. She was actually one of the first female genre writers alongside with C.L. Moore. She was given a retrospective Hugo Award, I believe in 2020, for this book actually, The Nemesis of Terra. She was also a very well-known screenwriter at the time. Lee Brackett worked on the early script of The Empire Strikes back in the 1980s. Unfortunately, she passed away before production. Other famous projects that she screen wrote for were The Thing, which is a great movie if you haven't seen it. I'm really interested in reading this book right here, The Sword of Rhiannon, and also want to read this at some point. This book is about a man from Earth, or Terra, who is prophesized to rule Mars one day and comes in conflict with a mining company. It's always those mining companies, man, always getting in the way of prophecy. Up next, we have Night Walk by Bob Shaw. I sometimes get his books. I have a few in my collection, yet I don't have the one that I want to read, which is The Palace of Eternity. So Bob Shaw is from Northern Ireland, and he won the Hugo Award for Best Fan Writer in 1979 and 1980. Yeah, this book is about a agent from Earth who is sent to a theocratic planet to steal the coordinates for a new world to colonize. Typical of us Earth dudes, always wanting to colonize shit. Yeah, I don't know. This doesn't call my attention too much. Still holding out until I find the Palace of Eternity, and that's probably how I'll start with Bob Shaw. Gusfraba. All right. Up next, we have The New Waver, J.G. Ballard. So my first video, the first book haul video that I did, I acquired a copy of Vermilion Sands. I have read that since. I think it's a great book. I love how connected all the short stories are, and it's definitely, it was new to me. I don't typically read that many short stories, and when I do, I either really enjoy them a lot or I dislike them so much that I can barely sit with the book. This was not the case with Vermilion Sands. So Terminal Beach is another collection of short stories by him. I've heard good things about this. Two most notable stories in here that I've read about are actually this one right here, Millennium, and The Subliminal Man. This book has to do with the psychological effects of tech and the paradoxes of creativity and destruction. And then what will probably be my next ballad that I read, The Drowned World. I'm really excited to read this book. When I read the premises of the book, it kind of reminded me somewhat of Hot House by Aldous. That was also one of my favorite books that I read last year. So this is your typical ballad catastrophe kind of book. Polar ice caps melt, London floods, like the Clash song. And yeah, it's the year, I believe, 2145. London has become this tropical island with huge fauna and flora. Yeah, I'm really interested in reading this, and I also really love this cover. Another thing that I learned about Ballard is, which happens with a lot of authors once their works become critically acclaimed, like Kafka, you have Kafkaesque, and then we have Ballardian. Ballardian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It refers to the style in which J.G. Ballard writes, which is kind of like this dystopian modernity, man-made landscapes, catastrophe. I mean, the list goes on. Read J.G. Ballard. I'm new to the new waivers, but so far reading him, I think I will most likely be dabbling in more of that subgenre of science fiction. All right, last one in this pile at least. We have Harry Harrison, The Technicolor Time Machine. This book sounds so crazy. This has to be satire. I'm pretty sure it is. This is about a Hollywood movie production that uses a time machine to shoot a movie about the Vikings discovering America. Like, what? That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Yeah, Harry Harrison, you'll see his name a lot. He's one of the older science fiction writers, most well known for the Stainless Steel Rat and Make Room, which I did not know, but when I did some research on Mr. Harry Harrison, I found out that Make Room is the basis for Soylent Green. If you haven't watched that, you should. I think this is probably going to be accumulating dust on my shelf. So I will probably be getting rid of this one. And yeah, I will probably start off with Make Room for Harry Harrison. Up next, we have 4 books by Michael Moorcock, our fantasy boy. All right, so I have most of the Elric novels by now, so let's show you guys what I got in this haul. We have The Sailor on the Seas of Fate, The Jewel in the Skull, The Sleeping Sorceress, and The Dreaming City. I have to read Moorcock at some point. I know I do. It's such a long series. There are so many books. I have a lot of them now in my bookshelf. I just haven't quite gotten around to reading them. But yeah, I'm really interested in the Elric saga, the original and some of the spin-offs or whatever. So this is the second book in the Elric saga, but chronologically, it is the third book. I don't know. I will rely on Reddit when I do read the series to tell me which order to read them in, just because I have no idea where to even get started. So in this one, Elric time travels on a time-traveling ship across time and realities where he fights alien sorcerers and other versions of himself. So, you know, the multiverse, which I'm not a huge fan of, but we'll see. Maybe in fantasy, it's somewhat different. And then we have The Jewel in the Skull, which is, I believe, the first book in the Hawk Moon series. It's about a future where sorcery and science coexist. This sounds like a nice little mixture of science fiction and fantasy. I'm actually kind of interested in this now too. Also, another book that I have to read by Moorcock. And then The Sleeping Sorceress is part of the Elric multiverse. It has this really nice cover by Patrick Woodruff, I think is his name. And then we have The Dreaming City with this beautiful cover by James Cawthorne. This apparently is the first introduction to Elric of Melniboné. So yeah, I don't know which order. Again, I will rely on Reddit. Tell me in the comments. If you know, drop it. Up next, we have good old Philip Jose Farmer with The Wind Whales of Ishmael. And as you can tell from the name, also what Philip Jose Farmer is well known for doing is reworking historical figures into his stories, just like he did in the Riverworld series, which I have not read. It's one of those I have not gotten around to read yet, but I will at some point. Actually, I'm really interested in this book, also because it's short and I read Moby Dick in high school. And this book is a reimagining or a continuation of Moby Dick in an alternate universe sort of thing. The plot is basically the sole survivor of Moby Dick, Ishmael, falls into this black hole in the ocean and is transported to this future Earth where there are no oceans and whales fly in the sky. I'm down for that. That sounds so cool. Kind of like the whales from the really crappy, what is it? Ahsoka, the space whales. That was cool. The show really sucked, but that part was cool. Anyways, don't want to go on a tangent here about Star Wars. I'm interested in reading this, and also I will be talking about later in the book haul. I'll be talking about reading books with book companions, like two books together that complement each other. So when I read this, I kind of want to reread Moby Dick with it, or read Moby Dick first and then read this. I did that with one of the books in this haul recently, and I'll talk about that later. And I think it really benefited the reading experience a lot. Also, there are some amazing covers for this. This one's pretty cool, but the quartet, crazy. The next book, Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang by Kate Wilhelm. I could not help myself. When I picked up this book, I was like, I'm gonna read it like right away. And that I did. So Kate Wilhelm was married to Damon Knight. He was also a science fiction writer and an editor. I think they co-wrote a bunch of stuff together. I have not read any of his work. Not too interested right now. Take no offense to what I say, but yeah, I'm sure he has great stuff, but I'm way more interested in his wife, who I have now recently acquired a few other books of hers. So yeah, let's talk about the plot of Where Late the Sweet Birds Sang, which the title of this book is actually a quotation from William Shakespeare's Sonnet 73. Literary fact in there for you guys. I have not read that. So back to the plot. This family that lives in rural Virginia near the Shenandoah Valley set an outpost to wait out the apocalypse or some catastrophic event. It's really not clear in the book what goes down. There are like blights in the crop and overpopulation issues and other such things. There's talk about nuclear wars. Yeah, this family sets up an outpost. A lot of the family members have backgrounds in science and are doctors. And one of the family members is working on a cloning experiment. So one of the side effects of this apocalypse that's going on is radiation, which makes a lot of the inhabitants of this outpost infertile. So they reproduce by cloning. So the conflict begins there. The book brings up questions of the collective versus the individual, and it's just a great read. I can't recommend it enough. I feel like this book kind of deserves a video of its own, which I will eventually do. But for now, you should read it. I believe this is widely available. I found it for like $5. All right. We have the notorious C.S. Lewis. These two books, Voyage to Venus, also known as Perelandra, and The Tortured Planet, also known as That Hideous Strength, are part of the Space Trilogy, or the Cosmic Trilogy, or the Ransom Trilogy. This is his space opera. If you look around on the internet, it is said that he wrote these 3 books as a bet he had with Tolkien. And I don't know. From what I hear, Tolkien didn't hold up his end of the bargain. Thanks to that, we got these awesome books. This is book 2. This is book 3. I recently read the first one, which is Out of the Silent Planet. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of what I expected to begin with. And there's a lot of homages to H.G. Wells. And I felt like I wanted to say that it reads similar to H.G. Wells. Rich in vocabulary. It really paints the picture for you. But it also spends a lot of time doing that. And it does it at a very slow pace, which is fine. So yeah, I won't get too much into the plot of these just because I'm still reading them. The first one, Out of the Silent Planet, takes place on Mars. That's the only thing I will spoil for you. This one is obviously in Venus. And if I am not mistaken, this one is back on Earth. Yeah, I spent a little bit more than I should on this, but it is a Avon first print, a rare edition. So this will only be for my collection. I will be reading another copy that I have of this. Theodore Sturgeon, A Pluribus Unicorn, is a collection of fantasy, science fiction, horror short stories. This is another name that you will hear a lot in the world of science fiction. I have not read anything by him. I am very open to recommendations where to start with him. I will probably not start with short stories just because I don't want to be off-put as I am sometimes with short stories. One of his novels, More Than Human, won the 1953 International Fantasy Award. I'm interested in maybe reading that, but we'll see. Yeah, if anyone has any recommendations for a good sturgeon to start with, please let me know down in the comments. We have Frederick Pohl. Yes, Pohl. Like I said, I've talked about him on my first haul video. He is a well-known science fiction author, editor, co-editor with, who was it that he co-wrote a lot with? I believe it was, this is another short story collection by him. Yeah, this is a Richard Powers cover. I've gotten really good at recognizing them because they have this aesthetic. This will just go on my shelf for a while. I have some books by him now that I am considering reading, but it will be a long time before I read any more Pohl. Nothing to say wrong about him at the moment. Like I said, I talked about his short story collection that I read in my last video, Day Million. A lot of the stories on there I liked. Yeah. You know, I'll collect them for now, and then eventually I'll read a novel by him. All right, I have a fat stack here, not really, but somewhat, of Robert Silverberg. I finally read a Robert Silverberg book. Yes, one of these I read, finally. So we have To Live Again, Son of Man, Downward to the Earth. This is the one I've read. It's actually the copy I read too. Those Who Watch and The Silent Invaders. I really love this cover art. Who did this? So To Live Again is about wealthy people who live longer by taking over living people's body. That's the future we're heading towards. The wealthy will use our bodies to keep themselves going so they don't have to look like Elon Musk. Son of Man is about a man, no way, it's about a man. A man who is sent into the future and must face humans that are very different. It's always really tough when people are different. Those Who Watch is about aliens that crash land on Earth and are taken care of by humans, whatever that implies. Probably the same thing they would do to us, like probing and stuff. And then, yeah, that's really cool. Saffron, I don't know. That's the cover artist. I really like these covers. It's a matching set, like Downward to the Earth. And then The Silent Invaders, I won't really talk about the plot of this one, but the cover artist is Don Ivan Bunchatz? I don't know. Downward to the Earth, the one Silverberg book that I have read. This is a retelling of, can you guess? Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. And like I said earlier in the video, I read this together with Heart of Darkness. I read Heart of Darkness on a train by myself like a freak. It was painful to have to read it again after reading it in high school. But this book is amazing. Oh, it's like so beautifully crafted. The alien species in this book, the Nildor, I'm really bad at pronouncing names correctly. I can't say their names. They were enslaved by human colonists, and after it was very obvious that these aliens that resemble elephants were completely sentient, had their own language, had their own culture, had their own religion, pretty much had done everything on their own before the humans came and fucked everything up. Then it was decided that the company of researchers and scientists that Earth had sent were to leave the planet alone. And only a few people decided to stay. And the story follows this contract worker who worked there and kind of exploited these aliens. And he goes back for redemption. The ties with Heart of Darkness are really in the book, but it just surpasses it in its message. Clifford Simak, Cemetery World. Yet to read any Simak. City is really high up on my TBR. I've not quite gotten there yet. I've spoken about Simak before. He's known for a pastoral subgenre of science fiction. This book is in a far future where Earth becomes a... One second. After a post-devastating war, Earth is left as a world that is so fucked up. A multi-planet species just uses Earth as a burial ground. I'm actually really interested in reading this book. I've heard recently that some Simak books are hit or miss, but this is short enough where I feel like if I don't feel like reading City anytime soon, I may start with this. And I will definitely review it if I read it. All right, and getting down to the last two books, we have The Heaven Makers by Frank Herbert. Like I said in my first haul video, I am a big Frank Herbert fan. I've read almost through all the Dune series. I haven't quite finished it. I'm still missing Chapter House. I think I said that before. I haven't had good luck with reading other Frank Herbert novels unrelated to Dune. I read The Green Brain, and I feel like before I said it was like, okay, but now I've had more time to reflect, and it's like, it's really bad. If I do a ranking video soon, that one will definitely be very low in a tier list. But anyways, let's talk about The Heaven Makers. The Heaven Makers is about an alien species that uses natural disasters and just pure chaos for entertainment, and they watch humans suffer, and they manipulate us and play us like a board game, basically. When I read the description for this book, I was like, oh man, that sounds exactly like the episode of South Park, Canceled. If you know, you know. I'd give this a try, just because the plot sounds interesting. You know, I am open to reading more of his standalone books, just because I have so many of them, and I think I'm not gonna let the green brain ruin it for me. I still really like Frank Herbert, and I'll give him another shot in either this, or there's a book by him called Soul Catcher recently become interested in. Last but not least, definitely not least, James Blish, Black Easter. This was the holy grail, or at least one of the holy grails from this whole haul video. Also, peep the awesome Wayne Barlow cover, and I love this Avon font. Whatever this is beautiful. I love this typeface so much. Yeah, I read this during Easter, Black Easter. I was on a road trip and I decided to take this as my reading material, and I do not regret it. This was so good. I will not talk too much about the plot because I'm going to be making a separate video reviewing this book, talking about the series in general, because this is part of a series which I kind of started in the middle. Knowingly though, yeah, the first book in the series I think is Case of Conscience. I have that book. I'll put the cover right here, the one I have. It's really funny. It has a dinosaur on it. And then the one after this is Day After Judgment. A black magician who is hired by an arms dealer to unleash demons on Earth for a day. It seems like I'm spoiling the whole plot of the book, but it's just so much more in this book than that short little summary. I'm interested in reading this whole series. Yeah, this being my first James Blish, I think I'm really interested in dabbling in his work. Shout out Blue Plate Books in Winchester, Virginia. They always have an amazing selection of sci-fi books. Highly recommend them. They're super friendly. They keep me coming back. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, comment. See you guys on the next video.